Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I am Matt Campbell. Today, I have a very special couple, Chris and Devin, hailing from right outside of New York City in North Jersey. And today, we're going to be talking about them attending weddings in 2024. So welcome to the show, Chris and Devin.
Thanks for having us, Matt. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, very cool. So just kind of break the ice. I have a couple questions for you. How many weddings were you invited to this year?
So, how many have we gone to this year?
You've been to 2 so far.
And we have another in a couple weeks, and we'll see what the rest of the year holds. But last year we went to
Probably 11.
Yeah, we went to like north of 10 weddings last year. This year's been a little bit lighter, but we'll still probably clock in 3 or 4 before the end of the year.
So is that because you guys are really popular, or is it because you're from smaller towns?
I think, well, I'll let Devin chime in too. I think it's partially just our age and partially we're from different places. So she has friends, she knows people from work, and then I know different people. So, and I have a big family, but what do you think?
You do have a big family and you have a big friend group, and they just all happened to get married in the last year or two. So,
Well, thanks. And just to tell a little bit about you guys then, because enough about the other people. How did you guys meet?
I'll let Devin take this one.
So my friend from college is Chris's friend from home. So she invited Chris out in the city one day for my other friend's 10,000th day on Earth. And we met in the city. We needed a celebration post-pandemic, so we celebrated my friend's 10,000th day on Earth.
Which is, I think your 10,000th day occurs at some point in your 28th year.
Yeah.
So sort of a silly celebration, but it was fun and we met.
Yeah.
It's funny you're saying that, because I read recently where a couple was celebrating their 5,000th day married. So I'm thinking that's becoming a thing.
That's funny. I don't know where that's got to be like 15 years,
Yeah.
10 years. It's a long time.
Long time.
It is. Yeah. Well, that's cool. What would you like to tell the listeners? You don't have to give your life story, but just maybe a little background about you guys.
Yeah, so I'll go first. I know Matt through the fact that we both write newsletters. His is, of course, about weddings. I also write about music, but I'm focused on music and data, and I work for a music streaming service, and I work on data for that service. It's called Audio Mac. So that's what my life sort of revolves around.
My life is very different. I'm an accountant, so I just work on numbers all day, but I hear a lot about music and a lot of fun facts through all of Chris's interviews and newsletters.
Devin does a lot of listening, though. Pretty a rabid music fan.
I listen to music all day at work, so my Spotify Wrapped is I listen to probably like 26,000 minutes a year.
So do you guys, because you're big music fans, do you go to a lot of concerts together?
Oddly enough, before I met Chris, I had not been to a lot of concerts in my life. Probably I could count them on one hand. But since we've met, we go to concerts pretty frequently. I think we've been to triple at least the concert I'd been to in my life before that.
Yeah, through my job, I can typically get free tickets, or like a ticket and a free ticket and a free plus one to like, smaller venues around New York City. So Devin's usually game to go to almost any show. So if there's something that catches my eye or something I know she'll like, we'll usually try to go take advantage of the work perk.
I love that, because I couldn't take her to like Two Cellos or Kenny G. She'd be snoozing.
That's funny. I saw someone say the other day that they should start doing concerts in the afternoon. So, because everything's always so late.
I had a friend that went to Foo Fighters in the New York City area. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it got partially rained out. So at least if it's during the day, then you have time to recoup that time.
True.
Cool. Well, let's talk about weddings, since you've been to so many the last 2 years. I wanted to ask you then, as a first question, for the unity ceremonies, are you seeing any couples commonly doing those? And if they are they doing anything that's out of the ordinary?
I think we've gone to a couple weddings in churches, like more traditional, and a couple that weren't in churches, but I would say like we're still pretty traditional. The only I think truly like out of left field thing we saw was your friend Aaron's wedding. Do you want to tell what?
Yeah, they at the end of like the unity ceremony, they decided to pour half of his favorite beer and half of her favorite beer into one cup and take sips from it and have a mix of their favorite beers to start their life together.
Yeah, that's definitely I've never seen that, heard of that before or after. I don't know if you have.
I have heard it once, but it was a black and tan.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're. I don't know what they mixed, and I'm curious if it tasted good because a black
Right.
is at least that's the thing.
I'm with you. It's got to be two beers that blend well together.
Yeah, I think the only, obviously the church weddings, you hear the typical wedding readings from the Bible. I feel like at the non-religious ceremonies, sometimes the readings you'll get will be, a little unexpected, but we haven't heard anything that crazy or seen anything that crazy.
Yeah, I actually talked to somebody recently. It was an artist, and she was getting married at the church, and they were very strict of what songs you can pick. So yeah, and I think it really depends on the priest as well, how forward thinking they are.
Yeah, and the church weddings we went to they were like Catholic masses, which I think is even probably even stricter. I think my friend who got married in a Catholic church said there was like basically two songs to select from when they were coming down the aisle or whatever, not a ton of variation there.
I would think it would be more strict too on the East Coast versus West Coast,
Mhm.
where it seems like we're a little more laid back here. While you were waiting for the wedding party to arrive at the reception, that's commonly known as doors open or cocktail hour, just depends on what's happening. What are the common vibes that you're seeing? Is it the traditional jazz like John Coltrane, or is it modern music? What kind of vibes are you noticing?
I feel like most of them have been jazz music or like instruments from the band before they go and play the typical band music for the reception.
Yeah, definitely. Instrumentals of popular songs if they have a band, or as Devin said, just like, I feel like to me your classic cocktail hour, Frank Sinatra, Love and Marriage, songs in that vein. I don't think we've gone to anyone where during the cocktail hour they've played contemporary music.
No, I don't think so.
That's interesting. And then you mentioned the Rat Pack. So it's fascinating to me how we talk about all the time in the DJ industry where the older music's dying off because the most influential music is your middle school, high school years. And as people transgress through time, then the 50s and the 60s are going by the wayside. But I think a few artists, like you were saying, are really surviving, like Frank Sinatra, Elvis. There's a few even Etta James, there's a few artists that are still transcending time, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's I would say those ones you've mentioned, but beyond that, I mean you're not really hearing any other music from the 50s, or I mean the 40s, forget it.
Unless you're having a Great Gatsby theme, then you're going to have the 20s music that nobody's going to know. So let's talk about first dances. Are they doing the first dances along with the traditional formal dances of the parents' dances? What are you seeing for formal dances?
I think the one thing that I feel like we've seen more and more is you have a dance with the bride dances with her father, and then of course with her new husband or their new husband. But I feel like we've seen at a couple weddings, the bride also, they dance with their father and then they dance with their mother. So it's a lot, it's like a lot of dances, which I wasn't expecting that.
I'm very sentimental, so I've enjoyed seeing the daughters dance with their mothers at the ceremony, and then the groom dancing with his mom, and the bride dancing with her mom. I think it's really nice
We
to
haven't
see all of that.
we have not seen a groom dance with their father yet, so
No,
I
we
guess
have not.
we're not there on the progressiveness scale, but a lot of brides and their mothers adding a dance in, which I think was never a thing, when our parents were getting married.
I'm kind of wondering if that was because through time, a lot of the fathers, they passed away or not able to attend, or maybe they're not close. So actually, one of our most popular lists was the mother-daughter dance songs. I'm thinking that maybe that just has transcended into an actual dance at the reception.
Yeah. In terms of the songs we've heard, honestly, it's weird. I feel like I remember more of the parent-child dance songs more than what the bride and groom select. I feel like some of them we've gone to, there's been a lot of your classic parent-child first dance songs, and I feel like there's been a little bit of country in the air. Do you remember anything else?
There's one song that we heard multiple times, but I can't think of the name of it. I'll have to think of it. But it was a lot of sons and their moms.
You want to sing us a few bars?
No, definitely not.
Sons and moms. I was thinking father-daughter, like Butterfly Kisses, and everybody does My Wish by Rascal Flatts is popular, but there's so many out there that
We've definitely heard My Wish multiple times.
That's the one I was thinking
of. Yeah, that we've heard a couple times. I think for groom and mother, I think that's been pretty popular. But I guess as you were saying, I mean, that's Rascal Flatts was really popular, like 20 years ago now. So
yeah, 2006. Yeah, so crazy.
That was actually my high school graduation song.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
It was.
So that makes perfect sense.
There you go. As far as the first dance, are they doing the first dance right when they come in after their introductions, or are they doing it after the meal?
I think we've seen a variety. Actually, I think that's one of the thing that's had the most variety is like the actual flow of the wedding. I think in general, most of the time it's like maybe while people are eating like a salad or something. So right at the beginning, sort of after they come in. But I feel like there were some where like toasts and dances happen much later in the evening, which frankly, I preferred to get it out of the way at the beginning so we could just relax the rest of the time. But
yeah, we've seen so much variety. We've seen like the dances and toasts during the appetizer or the salad. We've had weddings where we ate all the courses and dessert before like the dance floor opened up. We've had weddings where the dance floor opens in between meals. So we've kind of seen it all, which is interesting just to see what flow each wedding will have.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's venue specific or if that's the bride and groom deciding when they want it to happen.
That's interesting. It could be the planner, it could be the couple, it could be the DJ. Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be all of those. So let me ask you and put you on the spot. Which would you rather have, the dances as you come in, or get it over and done with, like you said, or save it for later?
I like getting it done with. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's nice to have it at the beginning, and then the longer and continuous the dance floor can be open is always my personal favorite.
Exactly. I'm thinking you're having it at the end. So this is the DJ's perspective too. We want to have the most dance time as possible. And if you're having it at the end along with the toast, typical dance time might be 2 hours. You're really cutting into that. Time for a quick break from the show to let you know about the Wedding Music Letter. Are you struggling to find the wedding songs that match your personality and music style? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the new wedding songs being released? Then subscribe today to the Wedding Music Letter by going to my website, myweddingsongs.com, and clicking on the Join Now button. Every Wednesday, you'll get song ideas to build your wedding playlists. On the last day of the month, you'll get all of the new wedding songs released from the prior month. So subscribe today and join over 7,000 other engaged couples and wedding pros by going to myweddingsongs.com and joining the Wedding Music Letter today. Now back to the show. What time would you say receptions get over? Last Dance song is played. Is that at midnight? Is that 2 a.m.? What time do you think your weddings are getting over?
I feel like midnight usually, or between 11 and midnight.
Yeah, I think that's right. I have not been I've been at a wedding where we stayed up till 2 a.m., but the reception was long over by then. Everyone was just hanging out very late. But I feel like between 11 and midnight, as you said, has been the most common thing that we've seen.
Okay. I talked to a DJ in San Francisco, and a lot of the venues there are cutting off at 10, so wasn't sure. Let's talk about the tosses and the cake and all of that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So are you seeing those less and less, or more and more?
We're definitely seeing the wedding, like the bouquet toss, less and less. I think we've only seen it at one wedding we went to last year. And then the cake, the bride and groom definitely cut the cake and do the whole tradition, but I don't think we've seen it at most weddings. The guests haven't seen it. Like they do it privately, take their pictures, and then the cake is served, but it's not like they stop the whole wedding for everyone to watch the cake cutting anymore.
Yeah, definitely. This probably feels ancient now, but I know my mom has one time asked us, was like, "Oh, who caught the garter?" And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." So, I mean, I think that was dead before we even started going to weddings. But yeah, I think only one toss. I have a dairy allergy though, so I'm not as keyed in with the cake, but Devin is a dessert expert, so
I love dessert. So the only thing that's sad for me is when the dessert's not announced that it's available. But because they cut it privately, I've missed the cake, and that is one of my favorite parts of the wedding.
That's a great transition. How many weddings have you gone to that didn't have cake? They had something else.
I think only one. There was donuts at one wedding.
oh yes, there was donuts at one. That I'm glad Devin is here because like I said, I usually can't eat any dessert at weddings, so I have no idea. But yeah, still cake. Cake is available at most.
But we've seen like fun flavors for cake. One of the weddings we went to had funfetti, which was fantastic. So we've seen a lot of variety in types of desserts that's been offered.
Yeah, and I feel like since there's not like a ceremony where they're cutting the cake that everyone's watching, the cake is just seen as part of the larger selection of desserts that you can pick from rather than like the main dessert, unless you're like Devin and just love cake.
So, Devin, you're going to love this. I'm going to take you on a tangent. When we got married, because we like cake too, we had 3-tier cakes. There was 2 of them. One was in the shape of a groom, one was in the shape of a bride, but each tier had its own flavor. So we had red velvet, we had the traditional white, we had the carrot cake. So we had 3 different flavors that you could have.
I would love that. I think that's my ideal cake.
Let me just give you a little hint. The one mistake we made was we made the bride's head red velvet. So it looked like when you were cutting it that she was bleeding. so just make sure that's on a lower or on the side.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's funny pictures from our wedding. So let's talk about party music. How long do you think the average party time goes since we were talking about that?
Dancing.
2-3 hours? 2 to 3?
It's
my perception of time warped.
it's probably a little warped. I'm gonna guess it's between an hour and a half and 2 hours.
Okay.
Some of them, like we were talking about the flow, I feel like depending on how you break up that time, some of it can feel like you don't really get that much of a chance to dance, which I feel like everyone likes to get out there a little. So it's always better when there's long, continuous stretches that can make that hour and a half, 2 hours feel longer.
Yeah.
I'm 100% in agreement. And especially like you're saying, the jazz music, if you're not listening to that very much or not into music, that can be really boring if you're playing the wrong type of jazz. And I've been to several weddings myself where people are leaving early when dancing starts, where they already have the cake, they've seen everything, and then they leave. So the flow, I agree, Chris, is really, really important.
Yeah, totally. I feel like it sort of makes or breaks the whole, definitely the reception.
Yep. That's why it's very important to have a professional DJ that can curtail anything that goes off course anyway. So were there any songs that everybody went crazy for that you remember?
You want to go first?
Well, I feel like there's a bunch.
Yeah. I feel like the ones I'm gonna say at this point are all like wedding classics, which are like your September, your Dancing Queen, and then some of that early 2000s pop punk, all the small things, Blink-182, Mr. Brightside. I guess that's not pop punk, but early 2000s rock and rock adjacent music, like Mr. Brightside. That's a song that's definitely been played to death, but people still love to hear it.
Even September.
Yes, I love September, so I won't complain about that.
I was gonna say, I feel like everyone goes crazy when Twist and Shout.
Shout. Yeah, Shout. Yeah, I'm surprised how long Shout has held on as the wedding closer song.
That's funny you say that because Don't Stop Believing has been a very popular Last Dance song too.
I don't think we've heard that as a Last Dance song.
But we have heard Shout a bunch, which is always
fun. Yeah, Shout's still fun, but I mean, let's talk about old songs. I think that came out in the 50s. That song has had legs. We live in Jersey, and most we know are from Jersey, so you definitely get your fair share of Springsteen and maybe Bon Jovi. Springsteen has this big 7-minute epic Rosalita
Oh,
that
yes.
I've heard at more than our fair share of weddings that I feel like if you weren't from this area would never get played at a wedding.
Yes, I have a DJ friend in that area, and he says the same thing. Bruce Springsteen. He has certain selections that he always plays that the true Springsteen fans. And it's funny, the new documentary about Bon Jovi was saying how they actually became friends, Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, really? I hadn't watched that documentary. I heard it was pretty good though.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good. So, are there any songs do you wish that you not hear again?
Because it's played at every wedding, I feel like I've had my fill of Mr. Brightside.
I was I was gonna say the same thing. I have had my Mr. Brightside fill, and it's not. I mean, it's weddings are only part of it. It's like every sporting event you go to,
Yeah.
every party you would go to in college. That song was blared at some point, and it's great. But I think if I never heard it again, I'd be okay.
Well, where I actually am in Las Vegas, and the Killers, I would say the second biggest band from Las Vegas. And it's funny you say that because somebody told me I think that's just as much as a jam. Of course, it's not as well known as Mr. Brightside, but I don't know. I'd be playing that one too instead.
Which song?
Somebody told me by the
Oh,
Killers.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. They have a lot of great songs where I'm like, can we? It's this. I sort of feel the same with all the small things, which I like. I'm like, Blink 182's got a lot of other well-known songs. Also, you said you think they're the second most popular band from Vegas. Who's
It's Imagine Dragons.
Oh.
Oh, I definitely prefer the Killers, but
They each have their own niche where Imagine Dragons, I think, are more pop rock versus alt rock.
yeah,
Were all of the weddings with DJs or bands?
There's been a mix.
yeah, we've had.
I feel like it's been pretty even
Yeah.
between DJs and bands.
Yeah, I think it has. I think it has been pretty even. Yeah, so it's been a mix.
That's interesting. My cousin got married in the Haddonfield area when they had a band too. And boy, there's nothing like a great live, I think it was a 7-piece band. So it was awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean if a band if they're good at a wedding, it's a ton of fun. If they're not very good, it's like, it can be a little disappointing, but a great band I love.
As far as the DJs go, what are you thinking that are some of the most important qualities in a good DJ?
I feel like my favorite thing about the music at a wedding is when I feel like the music is in line with what the couple likes. Because I feel like sometimes you can go to a wedding and it feels like it's just not what they would listen to or not what they love. And the couple has spent all this time, money, and energy planning the wedding that I personally just want them to enjoy whatever they like to listen to. So I feel like it's important when the DJ really knows the couple or like gets to know them so that it can be in line with music that the couple wants to hear as opposed to catering for the whole group. But that might be a niche opinion.
Yeah, everyone wants to see the couple happy. I always love when the DJ is able to play a mix of songs that gets people of all generations out there. I feel like that's the other nice thing about weddings is that they're cross-generational. So getting everyone involved, I think is important. And I think it's when I have the most fun at weddings, especially if you're there with older relatives.
Just to go off of that, I think that we all have to be reminded as DJs who perform a lot is a lot of the guests don't hear those great party songs every day or every week. It's kind of like me asking you, when was the last time you heard Unwritten? It's a great party song, but maybe it's not a song you hear all the time, but every DJ is playing it every weekend. So just got to keep that all into perspective.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As someone, I listen to a ton of music, and I feel like I also try to remind myself of that too, is like something that I think is overplayed. Your average person who's not doesn't work in music or make music or listen to music all day is probably happy to hear whatever that song is. Unwritten's a great example.
And I'm going to combine your answers and saying that it's kind of like when the couple is a huge Bruce Springsteen fan and Chris knows music and Devin knows the couple likes Bruce Springsteen, but then the DJ plays Born in the USA, Dancing in the Dark. It's like he has such a wide variety of music. Why would you pick those songs?
Yeah,
Make it more personable.
Totally.
So, is there something we missed that you want to share about attending weddings as a guest, maybe for couples that are planning their weddings?
I think we harped on it before. I think the weddings that we've enjoyed the most, and Devin can correct me if I'm saying the wrong thing, is that when things flow very nicely, and I guess our preference is that you get all the wedding-y stuff, the toasts and the dances all occurs sort of at the beginning, and then you let everyone enjoy the rest of their night while food is served and all that.
I agree. I love to dance, so the longer the longer the music's playing, the more fun I'm having.
We also went to one great wedding that was there wasn't like a traditional sit down dinner. It was like a sort of just a big cocktail hour with buffets, and then a band came on later, and that was also a lot of fun. So I also think there's other things you can do rather than the traditional wedding of cocktail hour, reception with all that stuff, and everyone will still have a good time as long as they have food to eat and alcohol to drink and there's music to dance to.
I totally agree. And that goes for most couples nowadays. They don't want the same wedding. I mean, you've been to quite a few weddings. You want to see something different. You don't want to see the same stuff and hear the same music.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we wrap up, Chris, why don't you tell everybody about your newsletter and how they can follow along and catch up with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on Substack. My newsletter is called Can't Get Much Higher. If you search Can't Get Much Higher or my name, Chris Dalla Riva, you will find me. I am chronically online, posting on way too many platforms, so I'm pretty easy to find. I also did a great interview with Matt about a month ago. So like I said, it's very broadly about music and data, but we cover music in all its variety there too.
Just for those listeners, I'll have links in the show notes so that way you can follow along. And sorry, there's nothing about accounting that we can share. The only fun tidbit I have is my senior year in high school was the last year at my high school when we went from doing accounting on paper to computers.
Wow. Yeah, if anyone listening needs audit services, you can reach out to Devin.
Through you.
In the newsletter too.
Sometimes Devin makes an appearance in the newsletter.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Chris, for being on the show. And stay tuned for next week for another episode of the Wedding Songs Podcast coming out every Thursday morning. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.